5 pounds, the small barbells. And she tried to hide the fact that she was pregnant because she knew he wouldn't like this, because she's for his entertainment.
For many years, the Dr. Phil show has been a mainstay on television. The show addresses a wide variety of personal difficulties, and it is hosted by the charismatic Dr. Phil McGraw, who is a member of the psychological profession. The guidance and support that Dr. Phil provides to folks who are looking for assistance ranges from family issues to struggles with addiction. When it comes to the question of whether or not he can be diagnosed, I believe that individuals are free to form their own opinions. On the other hand, Dr. Phil has recently revealed a shocking revelation that has caused shockwaves to spread throughout the entertainment world. In a recent interview, he disclosed something that a great number of viewers have been wondering about for a long time. A surge of conjecture and discussion has been created as a result of the disclosure, even if the details are still being revealed today. What information did Dr. Phil just divulge? To what extent will this have an effect on the future of his show? Come along with us as we investigate this surprising piece of news and investigate the potential repercussions. Dr. Phil's early life and career. One of the most well-known people in the United States is Phillip Calvin McGraw, or Dr. Phil as he is most commonly known. The majority of his fame comes from his work as a television personality, particularly for his talk program known as Dr. Phil. But in addition to that, he has written a few books, which makes him a significant figure in the field of psychology and that of self-help. Veneta, Oklahoma was the location of Dr. Phil's birth on September 1st, 1950. Veneta is a rather tiny town. He was named after his father, Joseph J. McGraw Jr., and his mother, Anne Geraldine Stevens, was known as Jerry by the members of his family. There were 3 sisters in Phil's family, 2 older sisters named Dina and Donna, and a younger sister named Brenda. Phil's family was quite large. Because his father was employed as an equipment supplier in the oil fields, all of them spent their childhood in North Texas, which is located in the center of the oil fields. Phil started working when he was just 13 years old in order to earn some additional money. There were 2 jobs that he held. One was at an A&W root beer stand, and the other was at a pizza business in the neighborhood named Pizza Planet. This took place in Oklahoma City, which meant that he was exposed to the working world at a rather early age. After some time had passed, his family relocated to Kansas because his father had a strong desire to pursue a career in psychology. During that time period, Phil attended Shawnee Mission North High School, which is located in Overland Park, Kansas. Not only did he spend his time there studying, but he also did other things. Additionally, he was a linebacker in the football team. A football scholarship to attend the University of Tulsa was awarded to him in the year 1968. Under the direction of Glenn Dobbs, he was a member of the football team and played middle linebacker. However, he did not remain on the team for an extended period of time. What steps did he take to become a physician? After some time, Phil made the decision to transfer to Midwestern State University, which is located in Wichita Falls, California. He earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from that institution in 1975 and graduated with honors. Now, however, he did not stop there. Due to his desire to acquire additional knowledge, he went on to receive a master's degree in experimental psychology in the year 1976. After that, in 1979, he graduated with a doctorate in clinical psychology from North Texas State University, which is now known as the University of North Texas. When you stop and think about it, his major research, also known as his dissertation, was all about applying psychology to treat patients who suffer from rheumatoid arthritis. This is a project that is very interesting. Immediately following that, he attended the Wilmington Institute for a year in order to receive additional training in forensic psychology. A gentleman by the name of Frank Lawless served as his advisor while he was working for his doctoral degree. This same individual went on to become a prominent psychologist on Dr. Phil's television show, which is rather amusing. Phil returned to Texas to join his father in Wichita Falls, where his father had already established his own psychological practice. Once Phil had completed all of his degrees and training, he traveled back to Texas to be with his father. When Phil first began his professional life, he did so at this location. After that, in the year 1985, Phil and his father joined forces with a Texas entrepreneur by the name of Thelma Box. Through a series of seminars known as Pathways, they began offering self-help classes. After working for Thelma for a period of 6 years, Phil eventually decided to sell his stake in the company in October of 1991 for a sum of $325,000, which was a substantial amount of money at the time. During this time period, in the year 1990, Phil and a lawyer by the name of Gary Dobbs established a business that was referred to as Courtroom Sciences, Inc., or CSI for short. Assisting attorneys in getting ready for court trials was the primary focus of this organization. In simulated courtrooms, they would conduct mock trials, and Phil would provide them with feedback on the aspects of their arguments that were successful and those that were not. It is interesting to learn that the television show Bull is based on Phil's experience as a trial consultant, despite the fact that he is no longer active in the television show CSI. Additionally, he was given credit for being one of the creators of that show. How did he get his start in the television industry? The career of television. An important turning point in Phil's career was when he began working with Oprah Winfrey. This was a pivotal moment in his career. His own show was finally launched with the assistance of this link, and the rest, as they say, is history. In the year 1995, Oprah Winfrey found herself on the receiving end of some legal issues. Beef was the subject of a significant trial that took place in Amarillo, Texas, and it was a very serious matter. In order to guarantee that she was adequately prepared, she decided to retain the services of Courtroom Sciences, Inc., sometimes known as CSI for short. This was the legal consulting organization that Dr. Phil had founded. Oprah was quite satisfied with the manner in which Dr. Phil handled everything, and he and his crew assisted her in getting ready for the demonstration. In reality, the lawsuit was ongoing for a number of years before it was finally resolved in the year 1998. In the end, Oprah was successful in her case, and she expressed her gratitude to Dr. Phil by publicly thanking him for his assistance in the decision-making process. However, that was not the end of it. Following the conclusion of the trial, Oprah was so impressed by the work that Dr. Phil had done that she invited him to appear on her show. It was a huge success when he made his debut on The Oprah Winfrey Show, where he was initially introduced. It was very interesting to listen to what he had to say. In point of fact, considering how successful his appearance was, Oprah made the decision to bring him back on a regular basis. The first time that Dr. Phil appeared on Oprah's show was in April of 1998, and he has been doing so ever since. His presence was consistent on Tuesdays, and he became her go-to guy for relationship counsel and life ideas. He was always there for her. On the other hand, if you were watching the show on a Tuesday, you were aware that Dr. Phil was going to be there imparting his advice on life. When we fast forward to September of 2002, we find that Dr. Phil was prepared to take things to the next level. In addition to establishing his very own talk show, he also established his very own production firm, which he referred to as Patesky Productions. The program in question was, of course, Dr. Phil, and it was produced by Harpo Studios, which is Oprah's production firm. It was a daily show in which Dr. Phil would focus on a different topic each episode, typically assisting guests with their personal troubles and providing guidance on how to deal with the challenges that life presents. The popularity of Dr. Phil's show skyrocketed, and by the year 2003, he had already signed a massive contract with King World Productions, the firm that was responsible for the distribution of his show. The transaction was extremely significant. For each year, he was going to receive $15 million from it. This meant that his show will continue to air during the entire television season of 2013-2014. He was placed 31st on the Forbes Celebrity 100 list, which is a list that lists the highest-earning celebrities, by the year 2007. Dr. Phil had already established himself as a prominent figure by that point. Moreover, this is when things start to get truly spectacular. The television program Dr. Phil was recognized as the 4th most watched program on television by Nielsen Media Research on May 21, 2007. The show had a massive audience of 6.69 million viewers. A little over a year later, on May 12, 2008, the show was still doing exceptionally well, despite the fact that it had fallen a little bit in the standings, falling to 6th position with 5.69 million viewers. During that period of time, the only talk show that was more popular than Dr. Phil was The Oprah Winfrey Show, which meant that he was in some pretty excellent company. Taking a leap forward in time to December 11, 2018, the show hosted by Dr. Phil was absolutely soaring to the top of the ratings. It had a Nielsen rating of 2.9, which meant that it was the most popular talk show for the 117th week in a row, making it the most popular syndicated show in the country. Let's talk about maintainability. And as if that weren't enough, by the year 2020, Dr. Phil had moved even higher on the Forbes list, finishing in the 22nd slot with profits of $65.5 million. This was an absolutely incredible accomplishment. Taking a psychological approach. Over the years, McGraw has been subjected to a significant amount of criticism. On top of that, it is not only from individuals working in the field of psychology. It's true that there are a great number of psychotherapists who aren't exactly admirers of the way he handles things, but even folks who aren't subject matter experts have had their opinions expressed. In essence, the most common criticism is that his recommendations are frequently very straightforward. Like, there are many who believe that his answers do not go far enough to truly solve the issues that people are facing. Critics argue that in the worst of scenarios, the actions he takes could actually be damaging to the individuals he is supposed to be assisting, or they could make things even worse for them. A significant illustration of this may be seen in the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is a somewhat well-known group that campaigns for individuals who are struggling with mental health concerns. There was something that McGraw did during one of his episodes that caused them to feel a great deal of anger. The actions he took in that circumstance were deemed immoral and extremely reckless by those individuals. You have to admit that coming from a bunch like that is a very powerful statement, am I right? He did not appear to have handled the problem with the level of care that was required, according to their perception. McGraw, on the other hand, has his own opinions of conventional therapy, and you might be surprised by them. It was in an interview that he gave to the Sun Sentinel in the year 2001 that he indicated that he is not really into the traditional concept of one-on-one counseling. You know, the kind in which a person sits down with a therapist in a calm office, discusses their lives, and makes an effort to work through their problems in a step-by-step manner. McGraw stated unequivocally that he had never been a fan of an approach like that. He went so far as to make a joke about it, stating that he is not the kind of psychologist that wears hush puppies, smokes a pipe, and invites patients to talk about their childhoods, particularly about things like their connection with their mother. Therefore, it would appear that he has always made an effort to approach things in a manner that is distinct from the conventional therapeutic world. However, here's the thing. Just because McGraw does not engage in conventional therapy does not indicate that he is negatively disposed toward it. In point of fact, he is constantly urging folks who are on his show to seek the assistance of a professional. That is something that he is very good at telling people, particularly when the issues that they are dealing with are significant. In the event that someone comes on the show with a problem that has deep roots, he will frequently advise something along the lines of, "You should go see a therapist about this." Additionally, people do pay attention to what he has to say. In point of fact, in 2016, researchers at The Ohio State University conducted a study that investigated the ways in which McGraw's show truly had an effect on the people who watch it. After watching McGraw deal with situations that were comparable to their own, the researchers discovered that people were more willing to go out and seek professional assistance for themselves or their children after watching McGraw deal with those issues. Pretty fascinating, don't you think? According to the findings of the study, this situation most likely occurs as a result of viewers developing what is known as a parasocial attachment with McGraw. Simply put, it indicates that they observe him on such a regular basis that they begin to feel as though they know him on a personal level. As a consequence of this, people have faith in him. They watch him assisting those who are struggling on television, and it gives them the impression that they, too, may receive assistance. On the other hand, there are other individuals who are of the opinion that the Dr. Phil show is not entirely genuine, and this has resulted in a great deal of debate. There is debate. To begin, there are many who are of the opinion that a significant number of the guests are receiving compensation for their participation in the show. It turns out, however, that not all individuals who appear on television shows are compensated for their time. Nevertheless, when it comes to superstars, they do receive a certain amount of finances. By way of illustration, ABC has revealed that Burke Ramsey, who is the brother of John Benet Ramsey, was compensated in a sum that was not disclosed in order for him to appear on the show and discuss the murder of his sister. Moreover, Dina Lohan, the mother of Lindsay Lohan, is said to have earned $50,000 for her appearance on a daytime talk show earlier this year. That's a relatively substantial amount of money for just one appearance. Despite the fact that it is not particularly stunning to pay visitors to appear on television, the situation becomes somewhat more contentious when we discuss some other claims at this point. At the tail end of the previous year, newspapers such as the Boston Globe and Stat both published an article that was rather intense. They asserted that Dr. Phil and his colleagues were engaging in activities that were significantly more heinous than simply bribing people. The workers of the concert allegedly provided their visitors with drinks and narcotics, as stated in the report. This was done with the intention of heightening the tension that was being portrayed on film, which comes out as somewhat unsettling, doesn't it? As an illustration, they provided the case of Todd Herzog, a man who actually triumphed in the game of Survivor. In addition, he appeared on Dr. Phil in 2013 to discuss the challenges he faced in his battle with addiction. On the other hand, Herzog stated that the staff had provided him with a mixture of alcohol and Xanax in his dressing room before to the beginning of filming. That is a combination that could be harmful. Furthermore, by the time he emerged from the platform, it was abundantly evident that he was extremely intoxicated. It was a very unfortunate turn of events because he was there to discuss his success in conquering his addiction. Instead, he was made to appear much more unattractive. On the other hand, there is another case. A mother by the name of Joelle King Parrish and her daughter Caitlin were involved in this particular incident. At the time, Caitlin was suffering with an addiction to heroin while she was also having her 6th month of pregnancy. The creators of the show, according to Joelle, were genuinely responsible for assisting her daughter in obtaining additional narcotics. Are you able to trust that? In addition, they displayed video showing Caitlin and her mother traveling to Skid Row in order to purchase heroin. It seemed to Joelle that the whole event was an attempt at manipulation. What they should say, how they should act, and what they should do were all determined by the producers. It was also stressed to Joelle that she should not question Dr. Phil since he might not be able to assist her daughter. That just doesn't get the job done. However, Dr. Phil himself has not provided a lot of commentary regarding these allegations. A psychologist by the name of Martin Greenberg, who was employed on the show, did in fact make a statement. He refuted each and every one of the allegations. Dr. Phil, whose full name is Dr. McGraw, is not interested in taking advantage of anyone, according to what he said. In point of fact, Greenberg stated that individuals appear on the show because they have a strong desire to do so. They go so far as to beg to get on the show on occasion. It is his belief that Dr. Phil makes an effort to treat these individuals with dignity and provides them with the opportunity to receive assistance if they so desire. Greenberg also stated that the story from Stat was extremely harsh and did not provide an adequate description of the show's subject matter. As far as he is concerned, the purpose of the show is to educate millions of people about issues such as addiction to substances and alcohol. He made it abundantly clear that the show does not give its guests with any of the aforementioned narcotics or beverages, and any notion that they do so is completely absurd. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of what Dr. Phil has revealed, he reveals something that is quite surprising. Who is Dr. Phil, the person who is the go-to guy in the United States for straightforward guidance, and the one who helps people sort through the tragedies in their lives on national television? To tell you the truth, when he was about 25 years old, he faced his own personal difficulty that was life-changing. A curveball was thrown his way, and it came in the shape of type 2 diabetes. Yes, even the man who was bestowing wisdom was forced to deal with it. When you were seeing him firmly take control of the stage, you would never have guessed that behind the scenes, Dr. Phil was coping with his own unexpected twist in the script. Let us take a brief trip back in time to the year 2016. It was at this point that Dr. Phil made the decision to share his health journey with the entire world, in the true spirit of a talk show. He didn't spare any words. The information was revealed by him when he sat down, most likely in one of those comfortable armchairs that he always had on set. The management of his diabetes turned out to be more than just another chapter in his life story. Rather, it became an essential component of his daily routine. Furthermore, it goes without saying that Dr. Phil would not simply deal with this matter in any old manner. The guy who is recognized for outlining life plans attacked it with the same level of commitment that you would expect from someone who is known for doing precisely that. At this point, let's move on to the game plan. You can know that if Dr. Phil is confronted with an issue, he will approach it with a technique that is quite effective. So what is his go-to method for controlling his diabetes? It is not enough to simply maintain a cheerful attitude and think positive thoughts, although doing so is likely to be of some assistance. It's more about strategies that are realistic. His strategy consists of two primary components: eating on a consistent basis and playing a significant amount of tennis. This is a significant amount of tennis. As if he were getting ready for Wimbledon or something, this guy is getting on the court 6 times a week and serving tennis balls to his opponents. Are you able to depict it? At the same time that he was casually lobbing shots while simultaneously throwing in bits of life wisdom like, "You can't change what you don't acknowledge" between sets, Dr. Phil was dressed in his tennis whites, possibly with a visor to block the sun. When you stop and think about it, it's fairly incredible. There is more to the man than just talking the talk. In spite of the fact that he is facing a chronic disease, he is running across the court, smashing forehands, and maintaining his fitness. But let me tell you something. At one point in time, Dr. Phil was not beginning his career from the very beginning. His diabetes diagnosis did not change the fact that he was already a reasonably athletic individual. It was not uncommon for him to go to the gym, lift weights, and work up a good sweat. For example, you could picture him working out with a barbell and then offering someone advice along the lines of, "You need to take control of your life just like you take control of this instrument." This is where things start to get complicated. Despite the fact that he had dedicated himself to fitness, things did not always go according to plan for him. The truth of diabetic management is that this is the case. It is not enough to simply maintain an active lifestyle or consume nutritious foods. It's all about striking that right compromise. In spite of the fact that Dr. Phil might be out there playing tennis or lifting weights, his body would still experience times when it just was unable to keep up with the demands of the activity. When you're in the middle of your training program, it's like having a narrative twist interrupt you. One moment, you are feeling fine, and the next, your body is telling you to take a break and tell you to hold up. This is one of the reasons why Dr. Phil's experience with diabetes is so fascinating. It demonstrates that even someone as tough and disciplined as him had to go through the process of figuring out how to deal with this situation. It was not enough to just maintain one's strength or physical fitness. It was about learning how to listen to his body and make adjustments along the way. He had to learn how to manage those sudden dips in energy and keep himself going, whether it was on the tennis court, in the gym, or even just on set, helping others sort out their problems. And let's be honest, nobody wants to feel like they're going to pass out in the middle of a conversation, especially not Dr. Phil. So he did what any of us would do when our bodies start pulling stunts like that. He went searching for answers. Picture this. Dr. Phil, normally the guy with all the solutions, suddenly faced with a problem he couldn't figure out. It's like being the detective in your own mystery, right? So off to the doctors he went, and they were scratching their heads trying to solve the puzzle of why this high-energy TV guru was suddenly running on fumes. Then boom, diagnosis time. It probably felt like a plot twist straight out of a soap opera. Dr. Phil, you've got type 2 diabetes. Cue the dramatic music. It's one of those moments where everything just clicks into place, but at the same time it's like, wait, what? Even for someone as tough as Dr. Phil, hearing that kind of news is enough to knock you off balance. But if there's one thing we know about Dr. Phil, it's that he's not the kind of guy to sit back and let life steamroll him. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Dr. Phil didn't just accept his fate like, well, I guess this is how it is now. No way. He took the diagnosis and flipped it on its head. In an interview with the Daily Mail online, he opened up about how he dealt with the shock. You know, most people would need time to wrap their heads around something like that, but not Dr. Phil. He's got this emotional toolkit, like a mental toolbox full of strategies and resilience that he's been building for years, and he went straight to work. So what did he do next? He made it his mission not just to take care of himself, but to help other people too. Classic Dr. Phil, right? Always turning a tough situation into something that can help someone else. He's not just managing his blood sugar levels, he's out there spreading the word, helping others figure out how to deal with their own health challenges. It's like he turned adversity into another teachable moment. And we all know how much Dr. Phil loves a good life lesson. Honestly, it's kind of inspiring. He could have easily just focused on his own health and kept quiet about it. But instead, he took this personal challenge and made it part of his mission to guide other people through theirs. That's peak Dr. Phil, taking control, finding solutions, and helping others rise above their circumstances too. Now let's talk about some other controversies and lawsuits. Controversies and lawsuits. Back in 1971, McGraw was living in Topeka, Kansas. At that time, he was running a place called the Grecian Health Spa. He didn't do it alone though. He had help from his dad and 2 friends. Things seemed to be going okay for a while. But then, in September of 1973, McGraw made a sudden decision. He closed the health spa without warning, filed for bankruptcy, and left the state. Now here's where things get tricky. Before closing the spa, McGraw had sold lifetime membership contracts to a bunch of customers. These contracts were supposed to give people access to the spa for life, but there was a catch. After closing, McGraw sold these contracts to another company. This meant that even though the spa was no longer open, the customers still had to keep paying for their memberships because they were now legally bound to the new company that took over the contracts. Of course, people weren't happy about this, and the whole situation got the attention of the state's Attorney General office. Emery Goad, who was the lead investigator, said that what McGraw had done was basically a classic scam. According to Goad, McGraw had signed up hundreds of people for long and expensive memberships. Then, instead of sticking around to keep running the spa, he sold the contracts to a financial institution for cash up front. After pocketing that money, he shut down the spa and left town. The real kicker is that the customers still had to pay, but now they were paying the financial institution instead. It was a huge rip-off. To make things worse for McGraw, several banks in Topeka sued him for $41,000, which they claimed he owed them. But because he had left the state, the lawsuits and the investigation pretty much came to a halt. That's not all. On October 21, 1988, something important happened involving McGraw. The Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists looked into a situation where McGraw had hired a former patient for a part-time temporary job. The board was concerned that there might not have been enough time or proper separation between the end of therapy and the start of this new job. Because of this concern, the board decided to give McGraw a letter of reprimand. They also imposed some administrative penalties, which means they put certain rules or restrictions in place as a consequence. There were also claims made by the patient about inappropriate contact from McGraw. The board investigated these claims thoroughly, but when they released their findings of fact on October 21, 1988, they didn't find any evidence of physical contact. Instead, they only mentioned that the main issue was the overlap between McGraw's therapeutic and business relationships. McGraw followed through on all the requirements set by the board. By June of 1990, the board had closed the complaint file, meaning the issue was resolved. More recently, in 2016, McGraw and his wife decided to take a big step and filed a hefty $250 million defamation lawsuit against American Media, Inc. This company owns the National Enquirer and Radar Online, both known for their sensational headlines. The lawsuit was triggered by an interview published by these outlets featuring a former patient who accused McGraw of sexually exploiting her back in the 1980s while she was receiving his care. McGraw had been adamantly denying these allegations since they first emerged in 2003. The legal battle was intense, but in the end, the lawsuit was dropped after both parties reached a mutual agreement, which suggests they came to some sort of settlement or resolution. Then, in the same year, McGraw faced significant backlash for an interview that aired on his show featuring former actress Shelley Duvall. The interview was highly controversial. Vivian Kubrick, a filmmaker known for her work and as the daughter of the famed director Stanley Kubrick, publicly criticized McGraw's treatment of Duvall. She described his behavior as exploitative and appallingly cruel, and even called for a boycott of the show. Kubrick's comments stirred quite a bit of debate, highlighting concerns about how sensitive issues and individuals were handled on McGraw's platform. As we moved into the 2020s, the controversies didn't stop. In February of 2022, a group of around a dozen current and former employees of Dr. Phil came forward with some serious allegations. They claimed that the workplace environment was harsh and toxic, with instances of verbal abuse and a culture of fear and intimidation. They also alleged that racism was a problem in the workplace. Adding to these claims, 7 current employees said that the show's guests were often manipulated and treated unethically. McGraw and his co-producer, Carla Pennington, were quick to deny all these allegations, firmly rejecting the accusations and asserting that they were not true. On top of that, a former guest on Dr. Phil's show, Danielle Bregoli, who is also known by her stage name Bad Bobby, stepped into the spotlight with her own set of criticisms. Bregoli, who appeared on the show in 2016, criticized a place called Turnabout Ranch. This ranch, located in Escalante, Utah, was a therapeutic horse ranch for troubled youth, and McGraw had previously recommended it on his show. Bregoli and another former guest, Hannah Archuleta, sued McGraw along with Viacom and CBS, claiming that their endorsement of Turnabout Ranch led their parents to send them there, resulting in a negative experience. After these legal troubles, McGraw decided to stop endorsing Turnabout Ranch on his show, reflecting the serious impact these accusations had on his recommendations and public image. So what do you think about Dr. Phil and the Dr. Phil show? Let us know in the comments section. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest videos. While you're still here, click the video on your screen to see more interesting content like this.